morning, church. It's so lovely to be in your lounge rooms, wherever you are tuning in from this morning. Welcome to church. We're going to sing some songs. We're going to focus on Jesus this morning. We invite you to come, bring your best, bring your worship, bring your adoration. Join us in worship this morning.
From the mountain, I found you there in the valley below. I see your love and your mercy, you're guiding me home. I know you're in every season. I feel your hand bringing peace and control. Jesus, your love is my anchor. You're my only hope. You're my only hope. I will trust in you. I will not be moved. High on the mountain, I will be lifting my voice, and in the valley, I will be dancing for joy in every season. You focus on Jesus now. beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us, so Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you, the veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory. For you were raised to life again. You have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's a worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart.
worship this morning. We'll now pass the time to the Light Kids leaders.
Hello children, how are you all today? I'm so excited to be here today. I hope you guys are too. Hope you guys are having a great time at home, staying safe and eating well. So, who remembers what the lesson was last week? In last week's Bible story, God promised Isaac something and God stayed true to that promise. You know what? He blessed him with many descendants, as many as the stars in the skies. Amazing, right? And today, we are going to talk about God's promise to us. Yes, you and me. So, God's promises to us are always true. He always keeps his promises because he is so faithful. At some point in our life, we all make promises, and a lot of times we break those promises as well. Let me give you guys some example. So, for instance, let's say your mom or your dad promises you that they will take you to the movies over the weekend, but they don't. So they broke the promise. And let's say you're at school, you promise your parents that you will obey all your teacher's commands. Whatever your teacher tells you to do, you will do everything and you always do the right thing, but you don't. You talk back to your teachers. So you broke the promise. I also break promises. I promise my mom all the time that I'll eat my veggies every day, but I don't, so I broke the promise. So I told you guys a promise that I have broken. I challenge you to tell your mom or your dad after this about a promise that you have broken. You can do it, right? So as we can see, promises sometimes can be really hard to keep, but why is it so hard? Well, that's because we're not perfect. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, but you know what? We have a God who is perfect. God's promises to us are never broken. His words, the Bible, are full of his promises to us. They were never broken. His promises is like this big, extra thick, special book that can never be broken. You know what? Let's try break this book, yeah? All right. Let me see what will happen if I bring the bestest of the best strength I have. My muscles. All right, take 2. Ready? It's so hard. It's unbreakable. But you know what? That's exactly God's promise to us. God always keeps his promises to us. They can never be broken. Whatever God said he is going to do, he will do it. God has made many great promises. They are all yes because of what Christ has done. You know what? Christ, because of this, through Christ, we can say amen. You can say it, right? So, we can trust that God has made many promises with us and he will stay true to them. We can trust that. Even when things seem like they're not going the right way, remember this extra special thick God book that can never be broken. Now, I'm going to pass it on to Myra. She has some special Bible story to tell you guys, so get excited.
Thanks, Jess. So before I move on to the Bible story for this week, I hope you guys remember what you guys learned and heard from last week. Last week was about the story of Isaac and Rebekah, right? And God blessed them with 2 sons, twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau meaning hairy. So today's Bible story, we're gonna learn about continuing that story while right now Isaac is actually pretty old, really old, and his eyesight is not doing really well. I mean, he literally is almost blind, really, he can't really see. So, and he also knew that he's gonna die very soon. So he called his older son Esau, and he called him and he told him, hey Esau, why don't you go out hunting and get some wild animals and prepare my favorite food, and after that I'm gonna give you my blessing. So as he was sharing all these things to Esau, his wife Rebecca was actually listening to this whole conversation. And as Esau went out doing his hunting, Rebecca came to Jacob and said to Jacob, hey son, listen to me, I want you to do exactly as I told you. Why don't you get a couple goats from our flocks and bring them to me, and I will prepare the food that your father likes, and I want you to bring that food to him, and he will give you the blessing before he died. And Jacob was like, but mom, what if he find out that I'm not Esau? He's gonna curse me instead. But his mom, Rebecca, was like, no, just listen to me and do exactly what I was telling you. And his mom prepared this food that his father liked, and after that he put a goat skin over Jacob's hand, so he will kind of feel like Esau. Remember, Esau means hairy, he's a hairy man. And he also put a goat skin around his neck, so he put on Esau's clothes and he's all set. So he went to his father. Hey dad. And Isaac was like, who is it, son? Oh, I'm your son, Esau. And Isaac was like, are you really my son? Because he doesn't sound quite like Esau. And yeah, it's me, your son, Esau. I've done what you told me to. I went out and get the wild animal. I prepared the food, and here I am with the food. Why don't you get up? Here, please sit up and eat it. And after that, you can give me your blessing. Isaac was like, is that really you, son? Why don't, come here, let me touch you. So Jacob came closer to Isaac, and Isaac was feeling his hand, and all he felt was like the goat's hair, which is like, felt like, oh, it feels like Esau's hand. It's hairy, but it sounds like Jacob. But he was like, are you really my son? Yes, I am your son. Okay, where's the food? Let me eat it and I will give you my blessing. So after that, Isaac pretty much like gave the blessings to Jacob. May God give you the dew of heaven. May the nations serve you, and you will rule over your brother, and on, speak over blessing over him. So once he finished, Jacob left him, and about the same time Esau came home with his wild animals, and he prepared all the food, and he came to his father and was like, Dad, here I am, I'm back, I got the food here ready for you. And as Isaac heard that, Isaac was like shaken. Was like, whoa, who is it who just gave me the food and I just gave the blessings to that person? And Esau knew it was his brother, and Esau was super mad. He was really mad, and he promised to kill his brother Jacob. So Rebecca found out about this, and he said to Jacob, hey Jacob, your brother is really mad and he's going to kill you. Now why don't you go to my brother's place, Laban, his uncle, who lives like further away from them. Why don't you go there until your brother settles down? And in the meantime, when you go there, why don't you find yourself a wife among our own people, which is the Israelites. They want to make sure that Jacob married their own people. And he went off. And on his way to his uncle Laban, he came to this place, and it was getting dark as well. The sun was setting, and he found this place. It was like, okay, I'm just gonna settle down here for a night. And he grabbed a stone, and he put the stone under his head just to rest for the night, and he fell asleep. And that night he had this dream. In his dream he saw this stairway, but the top was reached to heaven, and in that stairway he saw the angels of the Lord going up and down, and beside the stairway it was the Lord himself standing beside the stairway and speaking to him in his dream. Jacob, I am your God. I am the God of your grandfather Abraham. I am the God of your father Isaac. And I am your God, and I will bless you, and this land that you are lying on is gonna be yours. And God was saying to him as well that I am with you. I will be with you wherever you go, and I will not leave you until I've done everything that I've promised you, and you're gonna come back to this land again. The nations will be blessed through you and your children after you. It was an amazing blessing. After that, he woke up from his dream, and he just realized, wow, this is such a holy place. The Lord is here. And he called this place, this is the gateway to heaven. And he called this place, this is the house of God. And the next day, he took that rock that he was using to put his head upon for sleeping. He put that rock, made an altar, and he called that place Bethel, which means the house of God. I hope one thing that you guys can remember from the story today is that God is faithful to his promise, just as he spoke to Jacob in his dream in Genesis 28 verse 15. I am with you. I will be with you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. And I will never leave you until I've done what I've promised you. I hope you guys will remember that God is with us and he's faithful to his promise. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tam Phuan, and I'm the senior pastor of LifeGate Church. You know, in case you do not know, this is the sixth time we are meeting up together online for our Sunday service. And I'm sure some of you are beginning to miss one another in person, gathering together in this place, in person. I miss that a lot. But these are different times, and we have to adapt somewhat. And here I'm grateful to all the church leaders. You know, many of you have stepped up over this time. You know, some cell group have been meeting up together to pray together, outside of their cell group days. Some cell groups have been gathering together to play trivia together. In fact, they have these online puzzles where they can play together online and fix up some puzzles. You know, so I'm really grateful, and I want to continue to encourage cell groups to not just play amongst your own cell group, but also begin to have combined cell meetings with other cell groups as well, so that you will meet up with one another and so that you can encourage one another. You know, in this very different time, I've heard in the radio, someone say this. They say, "There's always the blessed in the mess." And I think as a Christian, we need to choose to see what the Lord is doing in our lives, especially over this time. Let's choose, the blessed rather than the mess. And this morning, on that note, I want to make some announcements, and also to let you know that the opportunity to give is available. You can look at the banking details on your screen right now, and it will be there throughout the announcement time. We do have regular meetings that keep going in our church, regular programs. I want to make some announcement on some of these things that are going on this week. First of all, it's our cell meeting. This week is our cell week. So please check with your cell leaders as to when and where you'll be meeting and what time you'll be meeting. If you are new and you do not have a cell group but you would like to attend one of the cell meetings, please check with Ben as well, or just write to info@lifegatechurch.org.au. We also on Friday have our Youth Alike meeting. I'm thankful to the youth leaders. They kept this meeting going. They continue to encourage our high schoolers. So if you're a high schooler, please jump in their live stream and their Zoom meetings. So please contact Ruth if you need more information, or write to info@lifegatechurch.org.au. And our Friday prayer group, I'm always thankful to this group of people who stand in the gap on behalf of the church. They're praying for people in the church. They're praying for the leaders of the church. And I'm grateful and thankful to them. And you can join them every Friday at 7:30 p.m. That's when they Zoom in. And then at 7:45, that's when they start their praying together. So if you would like to join, and if you need more information, just contact Bronwyn or write to info@lifegatechurch.org.au. And last but not least, we have a Smile program that is still running. Their main program is run on Saturday, and also over the weekdays as well. So if you're interested, I know the band still needs help in running some of the Zoom classes now. So please contact Ben if you need more information, and also you can also write to info@lifegatechurch.org.au. lifegate.org.au. Now this morning, as usual, I would like you as a family to gather together and to pray for our service, the rest of the service, and for the sermon that you're going to listen to. This morning we have a special speaker, like I've announced last Sunday. Cliff Fielding is the Alpha Australia Church Relationship Coordinator. He has come to share with us about evangelism, about inviting people to Jesus. And before he comes, there will be a Alpha video as well to be played, and then Cliff will come on to share with us from the Word of the Lord.
We all have that person in our lives, that neighbour we pass by every day outside our homes, that co-worker we see at the office 5 days a week, or those friends we catch up with every once in a while. People we wish could know and experience the love of God. How do we share it? Where do we even start? Deep inside, we know that it will cost us something to open up our lives and share our faith. It takes time, vulnerability, sacrifice, the risk of rejection. But this is our call to open our lives and to share Christ with the people close to us, because it's only through opening your life up that spaces for honest conversations are possible. Spaces where people can truly be themselves and explore the deepest parts of life with people they know and trust. That's why we're running Alpha. It's a course over several weeks where you can invite your friends to explore life's biggest questions over a meal. It's a chance for you to invite that person into an honest conversation about faith, because when it's hard to find the moment or the words or the courage, you can simply invite. Alpha, who will you invite?
Thank you, Tamfan. It's an honour for me to be here today in your lounge rooms to share a few thoughts about living life as a follower of Christ in the time of the coronavirus. And these are certainly strange times we're living in. There's so many unknowns. We're continually learning new ways of doing things, like preaching to a camera rather than to a whole group of people. Uncomfortable though it might be to learn these new ways of operating, I just can't help but think that this was actually a key part of Jesus' ministry. He was all about helping people to see things differently than they'd seen them before. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Easter, and it was a strange way to celebrate Easter all in our homes. But I was listening to this podcast, and the podcast talked about Holy Saturday, which is like a really key moment in the traditional church calendar, but not something that we tend to talk about very much now. It's that time of waiting between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Now, for us as 21st century Australia, we know that tomorrow Jesus is going to rise. And so we wait. We have the solemnness of Good Friday. We hang out on the Saturday, and we know that Sunday we're going to celebrate Jesus' rising. But his followers on that Saturday, they didn't really know what they were waiting for. Amongst them, there was probably fear, anger, despair, certainly a whole range of different emotions. And similar emotions to that, many of us have now in these strange, prolonged Holy Saturday moments of isolation and social distancing. How long is this going to last? What is going to happen? How will the world be a better place? And my hope and my prayer is that we will have learnt some lessons about ourselves in this time. But today what I want to do is I want to talk about three greats that I believe we find in the New Testament. And the first of these we find in the book of Matthew, chapter 22, starting at verse 34. And I'm reading from the Passion Translation. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they called a meeting to discuss how to trap Jesus. Then one of them, a religious scholar, posed this question to him. Teacher, which commandment of the law is the greatest? Jesus answered, love your God with every passion of your heart, with all your energy, all your being, and with every thought that is within you. This is the great and the supreme commandment. The second is like it in importance. You must love your friend in the same way you love yourself. Contained with these commandments to love, you will find the meaning of the law and the prophets. You know, sometimes faith can become a little complicated. And in this passage, Jesus is talking to the religious hierarchy. And these guys were really into making life very, very complicated. And sometimes when I'm having conversations with non-believers, they say stuff to me like, I hate religion. And my response to them is always the same. So do I. Because I'm not religious. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, who was once amongst the least religious people of his day. Jesus didn't complicate faith. He made it very, very simple. In these verses from Matthew, he spells it out. And he spells out the first two of what I call these three greats. Love God, love people. In the Message version, it says, love God with every part of your being. Now, I'm still working a little bit towards that goal of loving God with every part of my being, but I think it's a good goal to have. And then the third great comes a few chapters later. After Jesus has died, come back to life, and hung out with his friends for a while, it's time for him to leave. But before he goes, he promises them a helper, the Holy Spirit. And he gives them just one instruction. We find that in Matthew 28, verse 19. Now go in my authority and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to faithfully follow all I have commanded you. And never forget that I am with you every day, even to the completion of the age. The third great commandment is what we call the Great Commission. So I'm a simple guy, and my simple take on this is, great commandment number one, love God wholeheartedly. Great commandment number two, love people with passion. And great commandment number three, love the world. Live with purpose. Talk and model Jesus. Make disciples. And it's comforting as it is to know that Jesus is with us. Do do you ever wonder how we actually achieve this disciple-making thing that he wants us to do? Sometimes it seems like this massive task that needs to be undertaken by trained evangelists. But I think that's not the case. I think it's more about how we connect with people and how we allow the Holy Spirit to lead us. I want to tell you about a friend of mine. He's a part-time pastor in my church, and he works in the construction industry for 4 days a week. And one night, after work, he was going for a drink with his boss, and they're walking along South Bank looking for this bar to go to. And they see these 3 women in front of them who turn out to be sisters, and they ask them if they know where this bar is, and these women are actually going to this very same bar. And so they walk along together, chatting away and stuff, and they say, oh, you know, what are you doing? He says, oh, well, I work in the construction industry and I'm also a part-time pastor. And they eventually arrive at the bar and they're ordering drinks, and these women are still standing around them, and the conversation turns to this question: what's the best thing that's happened to you this year? And one of these women says to her sister, the best thing that's happened to you this year is you met that guy. You should leave your husband for him. And this woman turns to my friend and says, you're a pastor. What do you think? Now, there are a lot of responses you could make there. But what he did was he just shared a little with her from a biblical perspective of marriage. And then he told her about the Alpha Marriage course. He gave her his card, and he said he'd help her find a course near her if she wanted him to. So this person had a very basic knowledge of Christianity, but had not previously thought that a faith perspective had any relevance to her life. Now she's just wondering. He's left some seeds in her. We've got no idea what she'll do with this conversation. But he was obedient to the promptings of the Spirit. He was open about his faith, and he shared a biblical perspective in a very real way without being religious about it. And I can tell you there's a lot of people just like her out there. And there's also a staggering number of people who have no real understanding or knowledge of the idea of God. So where does that leave us? I think that the Great Commission is way, way simpler than we've been led to believe. Look at Jesus. His interactions with people were very straightforward, very, very uncomplicated. So as we were saying before, we've just recently had Easter and Jesus has risen again. So I'd just like us to meet him for a moment on the road to Emmaus. Luke 24, starting at verse 13, we read about 2 of the disciples who are walking to Emmaus after the crucifixion. Now that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him, and he asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? So they pour out their hearts to him, all about Jesus and everything that had happened. And Jesus starts to talk to them. He says, and beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning himself. And they're so engaged with this conversation that when Jesus attempts to walk on as they reach Emmaus, they beg him to stay the night with them so that they can carry on talking. They go in and they have supper. And it says in verse 30, when he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. And the thing I love about this passage is that Jesus enters their discussion. He doesn't begin a new one. Instead, he joins in with what they're talking about, and he connects with them. And when they realized it was Jesus that they'd been talking to, they asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? So what I think is that this is actually the core concept of the Great Commission. For most of us, it's not seeing how many people can come forward to a salvation altar call. It's just about walking alongside people, talking about Jesus, and giving them an opportunity to explore faith for themselves. People don't want to be told what to believe, but it's surprising how many of them are open to having a conversation about faith. So we only have one job: walk alongside people. Allow God to do the converting. In the 2018 National Church Life Survey, they discovered that 14% of the people they surveyed said that they would be open to accepting an invitation to a regular church service from a friend or a family member. And another 22% said they were unsure, but they might still say yes. And there's 3 top reasons that they say that they'd accept one of those conversations. 1, relationship, to support and affirm their friend or family member. 2, because they're curious about attending, they're open to trying something new and different. And the 3rd one is connection. They appreciated the idea of connecting with other people. So from all this, the researchers identified some clues to help us connect with people outside of the church. Now, these are very complex, difficult strategies that they've come up with. So I'll just step quietly through them. The first one is make and keep friends. The second is to try inviting people to special events. The third, invite people who used to attend. And the fourth, this is probably the most difficult one for any of us to do, have fun with friends, food and music. They reckon that those things are the things that will help us be connected with people who are outside the church. And I reckon those are things that we can all do. The Dutch priest and writer Henry Nouwen said, hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. It's not to bring men and women over to our side, but to offer freedom, not disturbed by dividing lines. And as it turns out, that's exactly what Alpha does. It creates a welcoming atmosphere where people can freely talk about the idea of God. And by loving them and accepting them, offering them a safe, non-judgmental environment, we are providing what Nouwen is talking about, a space where change can take place. On Alpha, we don't provide the change, we just provide an environment for the change to occur. And really, its success is its simplicity. You sit down, you have a meal together, you get to know each other, you watch a talk, and then you break up into small groups and have a conversation around that talk. And it's a non-judgmental conversation. It's a conversation where you don't just respond with answers to everything that people say, but it's a conversation where you just let people air their feelings, ask their questions, discuss it amongst themselves. In fact, I often say that the best host of an Alpha small group is the person who says the least in the discussion, but actually just helps facilitate the discussion to keep happening. And all kinds of people come to Alpha for different reasons. I want to tell you about somebody who came to an Alpha a couple of years ago in my own church. So in the first week, we were talking about why people had come to Alpha. And this guy said, well, I'm an atheist. And my friend has recently become a Christian and he invited me, and I thought, well, he seems to be a bit different. I'll come along and check it out. And so he really engaged in the conversation for the next 10 weeks. And at the end of it, he said to me, I'm really confused. And I'm thinking, great, he's really confused. This is probably a good sign. And he said, look, I walked in here as an atheist and I'm not an atheist now. But I'm not a Christian. He was really quick to point out, I'm certainly not a Christian, but I'm confused. I'm not sure. What do I do next? And I said to him, well, what you need to do is you just need to keep having conversations with your friend, maybe read some of these books that we've talked about, and just keep searching, just keep looking for the answers that you need to discover God. Now, some people might consider that as a failure because the guy came and did this whole Alpha course and he didn't come to Jesus at the end. But what I see is that's a huge success because he started this course as an atheist and he's actually finished it as somebody who's really searching for some answers and wondering whether God is real. So he's moved along in his faith journey considerably. And when you do Alpha, I think you set yourself up for failure if you're just anticipating every single person's going to come to faith. What you've got to be anticipating is you're going to help people discover more about themselves and more about Jesus. But not be looking constantly for that salvation moment. Because that salvation moment might come months later, even years later. But their attendance at Alpha with you has just been part of their journey. So I believe when we enter into Alpha, we have to enter into it with an expectation of people on a journey. And our measure of success should always be about their progression on the journey, not a decision for Jesus. But how many people here find it really, really difficult to talk to people about their faith? How many people would find it really difficult to invite someone to come to an Alpha course? Maybe you're like me and you've got a friend who you've invited so many times and you've been rejected so many times that you've given up. You know, we're all fairly convinced that people who aren't Christians aren't at all interested in God. But last year in our church, we did a huge campaign to encourage our congregation to invite people to the upcoming Alpha. Every Sunday we had someone telling a story about their journey. I got up one Sunday and talked about invitation and the importance of connecting with your friends, inviting your friends to it. And we really put lots and lots of effort into it. And this Sunday that I talked about it from the front, we were driving home and my wife said to me, so you're going to invite your friend? And I looked at her for a moment and I knew exactly who she was talking about. And I have this friend who is a very, very passionate atheist. So passionate, I'd say he's almost evangelical about it. He's really very anti-God, very anti-church. He really dislikes Christians intensely. He's actually my oldest and my closest friend. And I'm one of the few friends that he says he has. But generally speaking, he hates Christians. I seem to have been let off lightly here somewhere. But he is not somebody I thought I could invite to Alpha. And my wife just gave me this look. And I'm sure some of you men out there will know this look. And I thought, And maybe because I'm more afraid of my wife than I am of rejection from my friend, I don't know, I invited him. And the weird thing is, he said yes. I couldn't believe it. He said yes, he came. But he only came once. He came to the first week. He really entered in the discussion. And then he said, oh, look, I don't think this is for me. I thought, well, okay, that's fine. I've moved him along. He's actually doing better than he was before because he's actually heard a few things. He's had to think about this a bit more. 2 weeks ago now, we're living in this, everything online world, and there are churches all across our nation now who are running Alpha online for people. Something I thought would never really work, but it seems to be working incredibly well. So a couple of weeks ago, my wife sent my friend a link to an online Alpha at Ringwood Church of Christ. And I was talking to them a few days later, and it seems he'd registered for it. So he's giving it another go. And I think when we're dealing with people who say they don't believe, I think we need to understand that even though they say that from an intellectual perspective, somewhere inside of them, they are actually searching. They are actually asking questions. In Ecclesiastes, it says that God has placed eternity in the hearts of man. And I think that's a little bit like a spiritual GPS, that people are actually searching for God. Their actual spirits are searching for God all the time, even when they don't know it. So my prayer now is that he's going to actually keep attending this online course. And the remarkable thing that we've discovered is that people coming to Alpha online, a lot of them seem to open up maybe better than they might have done if they were in a face-to-face situation. I've spoken to a few church leaders who were running Alpha when this whole isolation thing hit, and so they converted to an online course straight away, like the following week. And what they found was that some of the people who never said anything in the discussion face-to-face have started to talk now that they're doing it on the internet. So there's some great advantages, I think, in this time. And I think this is how we, the church, really use the weird circumstances we're in to the best advantage we possibly can. In John 1:41 it says, "The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, 'We have found the Messiah,' that is, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus." Effectively, what Andrew did was he invited Peter to come and see for himself. And something like Alpha actually gives your friend, your family member, your work colleague, whoever that might be, the opportunity to come and see for themselves, to come and just begin to get a bit of an understanding as to what it is that Christians believe. The only reason I'm here today talking to you is because 30 years ago, I worked with this Christian woman, and I used to have these conversations with her. So I was somebody who had had a little bit of church background growing up, but I kind of walked away from all of that. And I definitely knew I'd been on some kind of spiritual search, and I looked into lots of Eastern religions and things like that, because that was the trendy thing to do at the time. And I didn't really like them all. They all seemed to be very, very structured and very, very controlling to me. But the religion I'd never looked into was Christianity, because I'd kind of done that as a kid and I'd written it off. And basically, I thought Christians, not very bright, and they really just don't have a very good time. They're dull, they're uninteresting, not a lot of fun to be with. But I found myself working with this woman, and she was great. I used to love talking to her. We used to have great conversations, and she engaged me in conversations about faith. And I found it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed talking to her about it. And what happened was that I became this secret churchgoer. I didn't say anything to her or to anyone else, but what I started to do was visit church occasionally. I'd slip in the back, and we've all seen people like this, slip in the back, watch the service, leave really quickly at the end before anyone can talk to me. But there was this one Sunday evening, and I went into this little Baptist church in a seaside suburb in Wellington, New Zealand. And I walked through the door, and I was a few minutes early, and there were only 5 people there. There was the minister and these other 4 people. And so they came and started talking to me. And I was freaking out, absolutely freaking out. These people are talking to me, I've got nowhere to run. But we had a bit of a conversation, and slowly a few more people came in. And it was not a huge congregation, but everybody was really friendly, and everybody talked to me, and nobody really gave me a hard time. And at the end of the service, the person who was sitting next to me said, "So what made you come here today?" And I thought, well, I don't really know what made me come here today. And I walked out of there thinking, why did I go? What is going on? And I got to this place where I realised, I thought, actually, God, I want to believe in you. And so I talked to my friend at work, and I said, I've been doing this thing, I've been going to church, And she was really quite controlled about the whole thing, although inside, I'm sure she was actually like really excited. And I said, I think I want to believe in God. And she said, well, if you want to, just do it and see what happens. And I said, oh, but I've got questions. And she said, we all have questions. Like, if you want to believe in God, you just need to just say yes, you know, and just give your life over to God and see what happens. And that's what I did. Very simple and straightforward. And I think now, 30 years later, I'm a minister. I work in this organisation which is all about evangelism. I still have hundreds of questions, and I'm not really that bothered about the questions I have because I've developed this relationship with Jesus. I also developed the relationship with my work colleague, and I married her because I wasn't going to let her get away from me. And together, she and I both work for Alpha. We both are passionate about telling people about Jesus. But I think there are 3 different types of people who benefit from attending Alpha. There's people who've been in church all their lives, but they've never really developed a relationship with Jesus. And then there's non-believers with little or no knowledge of God. And the other category is a huge category. They're the prodigals. People who have walked away from God. So my challenge today to you and to myself is to ask, who are these people in my life? What am I doing about helping them come and see? And we might think this is difficult now in this time of isolation, but as I said, Alpha is now available online. It's quite possible to invite people to come to Alpha, to invite them to an online course, to get them involved in a discussion where they come to learn about Jesus. So let me just pray as I finish. Father, we embrace with joy and knowledge that your love and acceptance is free. And we're aware that there are many, many who have wandered away from you, many who live with you but don't engage with you, and still others who have never known you. We pray for those people today. May they find themselves in conversations about you and be stirred to go on a journey of discovery. In this unsettling time, may we find ourselves in a place of faith. Help us to keep our eyes fixed on you. Give us insight and give us courage to have the important conversations with people. But help us to have those conversations always with love and with humility. In your mighty name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Are you hurting and broken within? Overwhelmed by the weight of your sin? Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ.
Well, thank you, Cliff, for a wonderful sermon. You know, all of us, I'm sure all of us, in fact, most of us came to church because somebody invited us. And I hope after listening to this sermon that you too will be someone that you'll be ready to be used by the Lord to invite people to Jesus, invite people to the church as well. You know, we may be running Alpha down the road. We hope to do something in regard to Alpha, and I pray and I hope that you will jump on board to help and to support us as well. This is about proclaiming Jesus. You know, we want people to come to know Jesus. So we thanks again, Cliff, for your sharing, and I hope and pray that you will have a good week. God bless you.